Good morning, everybody. It's Marty, the JavaScript party here. Rhett is out in the living room because we have some extra animals around today. We have Pebbles and Roxy. That's my son's two dogs. And things get a little crazy. We have them until I believe next Saturday. So today is Sunday, so I think we have 6 more days where they're just going to be hanging out with us. They get along pretty good with my dogs. The They all seem to enjoy each other. Here we go. So I'm here working on some code and just sort of exploring. I guess that's what's ended up. This has just become a huge exploration thing. I've been literally working on this code like daily for over a year now, since I believe it was the 1st of January of 2025, and we are in the 1st of February of 2026. So, and I don't really have a whole lot to show for it. We can add visualizations. We can come in and we can come in here, we can update and we can see it big, and then we can move around and all that. And basically, as I've moved through this thing, I guess I've just been highly fixated on craftsmanship, like trying to just truly understand just the implications of like unit testing, the implications of end-to-end testing, how things, just observing how things are different and all that. There have been a couple of bugs that I kind of run into fairly regularly and I didn't really understand. So that is so then it was just like, okay, while I'm working on these things like for a job, getting paid, I don't really want to just stop everything and investigate, you know, some bug that comes up over and over again, but doing my own thing, there's no implications. There's nothing bad about doing the bug. But one thing is when we built this, see how there's this thing is animated. We also have like other sorts of animation things going on too, along with the like right now these get placed in a specific thing, and there's like code to put these guys in the right spots. And the goal is like at some point to be able to have like sort of two identical animations, but like with two different cameras that are looking at sort of the same thing, or maybe eight in identical ones, and they're all looking at the same thing but from different angles and stuff like that. And maybe so, the animation at that point would be like at the DOM level, not at this SVG level, not at the actual visualization, but more at the DOM. And so I kind of took all the animation stuff, every kind of anything that could in any way be animations, and I just tossed it in a service called animations. And then I ended up with like a bunch of different like what would you say, like deep coupling things that really should not even be coupled together at all. Like things that really aren't even really related being deeply coupled because the code, it was reusable, but it was like it's one of those things like you can reuse this, but you probably shouldn't. You're using it in some way that isn't reasonable. And when I say reasonable, I mean like easy to reason about. Um, so anyways, so I've been trying to sort of undo that, and I think it got kind of coupled up and sort of mishmashed like that because the animations I think was the very first kind of piece of code that I carved out. So I didn't sort of have an established architecture at that point. I did know that the thing I really understood that I had learned from the previous effort was that the way that ThreeJS wants to sort of envision things is different than the way I want to envision things. And so I needed two things. One, and I would call them doppelgangers. And one was like, okay, I have the ST camera, which is how I want to see the ST camera. And then I have the three camera, which is where the gaps, the differences between how I want to see a camera and how ThreeJS wants to see a camera. That's where I handle that sort of, um, handle any special things that need to be done for that. But I was like, there's no concept of animations in ThreeJS. ThreeJS doesn't do animations. It just does like people animate ThreeJS things, but it's not really optimized for animation. So I kind of separated it out and I was like, whatever. And then I just started tossing everything in there. And now I'm trying to unwind that And it's been quite the interesting thing because I think it's all like if you were to, if we like kind of go through the sort of narrative of how we got here. Um, Basically, when I got here, and then I went, oh, okay, that's cool. And then I went over here and I hit, and well, so when I hit this, see, we're updating number one, visualization number one. And so then when I came over here and I did a delete, and then I did another add viz, and then I come in here, it was like number 13. Now it's number two. But um, I was like, I had all these false memories of having created like a recyclable service, which I did do that, and then deleting and recycling everything, and I hadn't done that. So I was, as I was moving through the whole CRUD create, read, update, delete chain of events or chain of tasks, and I did the delete, and then I went to go do the update. Some problems in delete got exposed, so I started working on those, and that put me down a whole bunch of different rabbit holes, and then some problems in update got um, or in read kind of got exposed. So then I kind of went down those rabbit holes, and now I'm to create. Like it's sort of this natural, organic kind of thing where I'm moving back through, and now I'm trying to normalize this animation service to be more like all the rest of the system because at some point I'm sort of my verbiage changed and I was saying like, oh, I have a camera doppelganger, and then I also have a three doppelganger, and that's how I handle the two different things. But once I changed the words changed. So the words that I started using were, this is where I handle the way, ST is where I describe my vision of the world, the way I want the world to look. And then three is where I describe how it has to be mutated to fit into ThreeJS's vision of the world. And that is different. It sounds kind of the same, but it's different because in the first thing, it was exclusive to anything that just happened to exist in 3 and that I happen to want to describe. But now animation doesn't exist in 3, but there is code that has to be done special for ThreeJS to make it fit. And then inside my animation code, I also have a bunch of code that isn't even related at all to anything 3JS. It's all related to the DOM and to Angular. And so it's like, well, that really shouldn't all be mixed in. So anyway, so that's what I've been doing. And basically, there was a whole bunch of code in this for loop here. And we've sort of slowly but surely been just pulling this code out and making it more um, specific to um, I mean, more, yes, specific to ThreeJS, and then and and so that's what I've been doing, and so now we have this for loop, which I think this was probably like 25 lines of code, and now it's like technically 3 lines of code. Just depending on how you want to count this, maybe it's 4 lines of code. Um, so we want to probably the next thing. I feel like I had started to work on something, and I forgot what it was. But probably the next thing I want to do is take this and make that a. I feel like everything in here is all about ThreeJS trying to mutate things so that it can communicate effectively with ThreeJS. So I feel like this entire thing would be nice if this was a function where um, I pass it the mesh ID. See, there could be more than one mesh ID. So basically, we want to take this and pass it the mesh ID, and it handle everything on its side. Um, and so what we really want to make sure we don't have is this, the word this, but all of our thises are okay in this situation because they're all for the animation service, and that's where I want to move this to. So instead of this 3 animation service, this will just become this.get when I move over there. So we want to make sure. Well, one thing I did notice yesterday that drove me nuts was this function right here. Go to definition. Was it this one? Oh yeah, I don't like that at all. See, this should be 3 ID. And this one's easy, right? So we are taking, what kind of ID are we getting? It must be a mesh ID, right? Update material, mesh dictionary. So this is our 3, and then it takes an ST mesh ID as the ID. And see, it's easy to lose track of that, right? This is update material. So the first thing I want to do is change this to ST mesh ID. I think one thing that I don't know if it's just like a new idea or if it was like one of these things that sort of like the system kind of points us in this direction, but like it is so important to protect your cognitive load, like how much load is being put on your brain, because it's really hard to make good decisions when you're under a tremendous amount of cognitive load. Um, so anything you can do to lower the like, oh wait, I have to imagine that this ID is actually the ST mesh ID, but I put it right in the words there, so now I don't have to try to figure that out. So while under normal conditions, knowing that I'm looking at get mesh by ID is probably the STID, it's not that hard to think about when you're already loaded up. It can be the camel that breaks the it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So and that one's easy to fix, right? Because it's all like in here, but this one, um, and this is ST mesh ID. And this was the kind of change that you would not want to do back in the day at all. Because when you would do a change like this, it could take years for all the different issues to kind of play themselves out, and you might have bugs for years before anything goes. Okay, so this is not. This is ST mesh ID. See, are there any more broken ones in here? ST mesh ID, and then okay, so we have something broken here at the scene service. See, it's the mesh ID. See, in this situation, there really isn't a whole lot of cognitive load because I'm saying in this name that this is the mesh ID. Although I call it the base mesh ID, which may not necessarily be, may not be like the ST version of it. Um, so now we're to the animation service. Mesh ID. And if we're being completely honest, like the biggest reason I'm driven to do this is because I just don't. Okay, I don't see how anybody will ever get to where I am coding the way I got here. Like the world has just changed too much. So where I'm at, you can't get here. If you're just trying to learn how to code, you can't get here the way I got here. You can get here for sure. There's definitely a way to get here, but you're never going to get here the way I got here. And so all I can do is show where here is. And then you could try to figure it out because honestly, like what they teach in college or in most teaching is just isn't very accurate on the actual day to day of being a developer. Um, all right, so we're back to square one to our mesh, and we changed that, and then I felt like there was another one where I was like, oh, that should be named ST, but we'll try to fix those as we move through. And that is another thing, like you never ever ever want to do what I just did in a production situation, because in a production situation, other people are writing code against the same code that you're writing code. So if you start just changing names when they do their their commit, you're likely going to cause um, Git conflicts, and at the absolute worst time, at the time that you're trying to do demos and stuff, you're going to have all these Git conflicts. And if you have all those Git conflicts, then the conversations become extraordinarily abstracted. It's very, very difficult to actually have a productive conversation because everybody's just operated under a different set of facts. All right, so I want to take all of this. I would love all of this um, to be in the three animation service. And so this one takes a list of IDs and iterates over them. I guess that's what I want to do is I want to pass it a list of mesh IDs. And so we want to copy this whole thing. And this thing probably, what's this called? Update property. So all of this is all about updating the property for animation. Update property for animation, but it probably should be update property, update animations for mesh IDs. And again, let's see. And again, there's no reason for this to be. Oh, and it's not. Oh, that's pretty cool. So this is not a singleton. This is just a class. So like it has nothing to do with the injection tree or any of that kind of stuff. So basically you give it your class. I mean, you give it everything it needs. The caller gives it everything it needs. So we don't have to worry about the cyclic thing, the cyclic NG0200 cyclic error. I think that's what it's called. So we want update animations for mesh IDs. And it is going to take in a list of mesh IDs. And they're ST mesh IDs. I really think this is going to start becoming extraordinarily important if we ever get to the point where we have a physics engine in here, because I have a feeling we're going to have a different kind of mesh for the physics engines, and we're not going to want to mix those together. So then it's going to be like an animation, ANI mesh, ANI mesh ID. But that is an array of numbers, and it's going to return a boolean for now. Maybe not. I think that's what we want to return. And for now, I'm just going to say return true. And then I guess we always end at const updated is equal to false. And then we're going to return updated. So the idea is updated. So the idea is that we'll end up looping over all the mesh IDs. Okay, so now let's go back. I like how I did that, how I didn't make this a injectable singleton for root thing. And the biggest reason I like that is because, again, cognitive load. I don't have to consider, okay, how does this affect other things? This is just its own standalone set of pure just functionality with no state whatsoever to deal with. Okay, so I did call these ST mesh IDs over here. So I think, well, okay, let's figure out where this for each ends. Okay, so the for each ends right here. And then copy. And then copy. And then we are going to try to line that up a little bit better. I don't know what it is. There is something like cathartic, I think is the word that people use for aligning things up. Like the act of lining things up could be extraordinarily cathartic, but could also be like it can drive people nuts too. Um, okay, so basically, if we get enter into this for each at all, I'm just going to assume that it was updated. Updated equals true. So, and you might hear the phrase closure sometimes. It's a oh, that's a const. Let's this right here, where this function is its own standalone function, can see this variable up here, which is, if you ever like study like programming languages in general, a little bit opposite. Normally, the parents can see anything in the children, but the children can't see anything in the parents. But in this situation, this can see up here, but up here can't see anything in here. See, like if I create another variable, if I say like const hello, and I say that's equal to world, and then I come up here outside of this function, and I say console.log, and I say hello. It really can't see this because this is inside of a child, uh, and so anything that's inside of a child, I don't know what, there's probably other words too, but in general, anything that's inside of something that's created inside of something else can't be seen by anything above it, but everything above it can be seen in here. So if in here I can say updated equals true, and that's generally, I believe, what everybody means when they say a closure. Um, that's technically what they mean. The words can be a lot more complex than that, though. All right, so let's bring this all back. And then this dot three mesh service, and then three. Okay, that. Oh no. All right, so get mesh by st mesh ID. So actually, I guess it wants to get. I'm very confused. I thought this was the three. Okay, so this is the three animation service. Oh, this comes from the three mesh service. And literally all it's doing is trying to get the meshes. So I feel like it makes sense to get the meshes um, up top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment all of this out. And instead of, well, okay, let's just do this. I don't know what the best way to do this, but this is three ST meshes. And this is going to be a, oh no, these aren't ST meshes. These are three meshes. And then these are going to be these guys. It's going to be an array of these guys, which I didn't define this. This is defined by ThreeJS. But it takes an array of those things. And then this becomes three meshes for each. And then this becomes a mesh, a three mesh. And it's three dot mesh. Okay, I don't understand why it's complaining about this right here. Oh, it says I already have something called, okay, so yeah, so we don't need this anymore at all. All right, so now this, get animation for, Oh man, so this isn't the right. Okay, so this comes from animation service. That's the ST animation service. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to get a list of animations. So it actually needs the ST animation service. So let's try this. I don't know. I've never tried this before. Not in JavaScript or in TypeScript, but it seems like I can just do this. This is where I get that pit in my stomach where I'm like, oh, geez, I hope I don't end up just screwing this up so bad that that I have to delete everything because I have other stuff. ST animation service. It's an ST animation service. So that's one way you could do it. But I think you could do it. The other way I could actually inject it. I think we had actually last week we're talking about like, oh, I could just inject it here. I wonder what the implications of that are. But I feel like this is definitely safer. I don't really know. But so so this is going to get it passed in. So it's going to whoever calls it, its responsibility is to tell it what the ST animation service is. So it's not I'm not putting it on the injector to figure that out. Now it wants to get a mesh animations for a mesh ID. So we know. So I don't think our 3mesh has. Okay, 4mesh IDs. So this is for 3meshes. Meshes, right? So we're getting it for the 3meshes, but we do not have the IDs. And I don't think the 3mesh will have the ID on it. Ugh. Okay, so that's kind of a bummer because I think so we need the mesh IDs in order to get the animation, but we are passing. So now I've kind of felt like, okay, I don't know. I've never really done this kind of thing before, so I'm going to try something else. Okay, I'm going to go back to mesh IDs. This, what I'm going to do now is feels a little cheap and dirty, but maybe not. Maybe it is a good way to do it. Sometimes the right way just doesn't feel right until you do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that is right. All right, so I want to get a 3mesh service, right? So mesh service, which is in fact a 3mesh service, which I think that's what it's called. Maybe not. Let's see. Let's go back to wherever we were at before. I don't know. I think it's this just generic animation service. So we do take, oh, I don't think I put the word 3. That's right. 3 is just mesh service. Man, I kind of regret that. I knew at the time I was going to regret it. I guess I wanted to experience the actual consequences of that regret. All right. And then we want the ST animation service. And this is ST animation service. And I think I did call that one properly. Hey, Pebbles. And then, so now we're going to get IDs. ST mesh IDs. And then this, now I'm passing in the 3mesh service. I don't know. I've never done this before, so I have no idea what sort of weird ass edge case bugs I'm gonna end up creating. But um, it's a new thing. I've never tried it before. Three. Ah. Oh, okay, that's this. This is the animation service. I feel like it shouldn't be called service. I don't know. I feel like a service is a singleton, but I really don't know. All right, so now it's at least transpiling properly. Feels like I could just call this, pass in my mesh IDs and my two services. And just make sure that this actually, when we do this, make sure that nothing weird broke here. I can't imagine how anything could have broken. Okay, so now we want to go back up to our animation service. We want to call this, and we want to pass it the mesh IDs and the mesh service. So I do want to point out that that I thought that the narrative of, oh, I'm going to pass in the meshes and then work from there. I thought that narrative was a great narrative. I mean, it was bulletproof. And then when we actually tried to do it, it was wrong. And I don't think there's anything weird about that. That happens all the time. And you can't get too married to your narratives, because if you get married to your narratives, you've crippled yourself. You've literally taken yourself and made it to where you're at a majorly disadvantaged state. I guess I should just copy all of this. And then I'm going to go over here to my animation service. And this is, I want to pass it these mesh IDs. And then this dot animation 3 animation service dot. And then these are called ST mesh IDs, so that works. And in general, I would say that I could go either way when it comes to whether you put these different arguments or parameters on different lines or the same line. I would say once you get to more than two, it makes a lot of sense to put it on a different line, and only because of Git. If it wasn't for Git, I wouldn't. The fact that, see, Git sort of breaks your code down into individual lines. That's how it chooses to break things down. So um, it's better to give it separate lines so that you can um, so that you can so that when somebody else comes in and they need to do some work, they can do that. Now, I don't like the extra comma there. I don't like that. I don't know why at the end there. And I remember they added that, but it is so nice from a Git perspective to have that extra comma there. So that means if somebody else needs to add something, they can just come in and hit that, and then they don't have to worry that they change the same line. Like if two people change this line here, um, they would both change this comma, and which I guess isn't true. A lot of times I'll get conflicts by adding it higher up or something, you know, but I don't know. That is tricky. Anyways, so now we have this. I think that should work. I don't even know what happens if you call it twice. Let's see. I guess it'll help us. See, I think it's going twice as fast now. I think. I'm not sure on that. It seems like it's going twice as fast. All right, so now let's see. And again, while I do think there's a certain sense of comfort, and it feels good to kind of go from that to this, um, there's also I feel like it's actually useful. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes that layer of abstraction, like, do we really need to know in this part here, do we really need to know anything more than it's updating the animations for mesh IDs? I don't think so. So let's see. Advis. Okay, cool. And see, it does seem to be moving slower now. All right, so we do not need this anymore. And that's nice. And that ended up being a lot easier. And I don't think this does not feel wrong now that I'm doing it. It felt wrong when I was considering it just because it was so different. But passing in the actual um, singletons and not depending on the injector to do it feels fine. I think alternatively we could inject these into that class, but then it's like there's an abstraction there that I don't really understand what's happening. Maybe one day I could take a course with Angular or something and learn all about how the injector works and all that. I'm hesitant to like try to look it up like on YouTube and stuff and just start like trying to study through there because there's just so much incorrect things. And there's like mental models that will get you from point A to point B, but those mental models aren't actually accurate and they are actually damaging if you want to get to point C. So, it's just like I would want something a little bit more like formal from people that understand it at a more of a not necessarily more of a actual implementation level, not a practical or theoretical level, but at a implementation level. Um, so anyway, so now we have our SDIDs. It would be nice if we could pass the scene, which I don't see any reason. I don't know why. It feels like this is how we want to do this. But the thing is we really want, I guess we want the scene, the whole scene. And see, this uses the scene service to use a renderer ID to get the scenes. So like theoretically at this point we could just do this. Like and it would make sense, I think, and it's kind of thing I see all the time. I don't think there's anything particularly like unusual about this. We could just do that. And now we're done with these two lines. But I feel like that is a lot of cognitive load right there. Like trying to figure out what's happening there is a lot. Is a lot. So I think what I would rather do is like in that function in the ST3 animation service function, I think I'd rather have something that says like I guess I would rather get so mesh IDs. So I don't think this is really doing anything, right? This line of code. But I guess it does over there. So basically, I guess what I want to do is I want to, oof, this is tough. I guess I want to take another function, and then for that one, I also want to pass in the scene service, and then it call this stuff. So this would be like animate meshes for scene. So let's try that. And I guess what we want to do is copy all of this. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so in order to render it from there, we'll also need to pass in the renderer service. But anyways, let's just go ahead and do this part here. And I never know. Like I always like I know the direction to go into, but I don't know the destination that we're going to get to. But I know we're going to want to animate meshes And it's 3 meshes, right? So update animations for mesh ID. Okay, so this is update animations for scene ID. Animations for renderer. That's what we want. And inside of there, we want something like this. And then we know we want an ST renderer. And that is of type ST renderer. So ST renderer, keep in mind, if it has the word ST in it, it's the way I defined it, the way I want it to, the way I want to envision the world. So there's a renderer like that. Okay, so we also know we need our ST scene service. And we know that we did put STs in front of those. And then we don't need this anymore. And then we know that it's very safe to pull in an interface like this. There's no challenge there. And then this thing is going to get our animation service, but that's this, right? And then I guess we need to pass in our 3 service and our animation service, ST animation service in here. Again, this feels like, I don't know, I think we call it 3 mesh service. I think we call it like unlimited ammo in my family. Like early games, a lot of games when you first started playing had unlimited ammo. You could just spray and pray, just shoot all you want, anywhere you want. You would never run out of ammo. Um, and then sort of games matured, and but I think anyone who kind of came up in the unlimited ammo um, world, like when you're doing stuff like this, it's just like, you can always just you can just keep adding services into arguments. No big deal. There's no but downside to it, but there probably is. But we won't know until we run into it. Service, service, and then this dot animation service, and then that. I think we can shift over to that now. We can just call this update animations for renderer, pass it in the ST renderer and all the. And I guess that worked out really well last time I was doing it this way. So this. What bothers me about this, right? Like this, I don't like the fact that I haven't done anything to sort of indicate that this is like a pure flat non like a class that I'm just using versus these that were injected from the injector. Like you can't really read that, so like you kind of have to go back and look and see, oh, this is just a class. That's why I feel like maybe getting rid of, maybe renaming this to class might help. Let me do that. I don't know. I don't know about that. And then we want to update our animations for render. I think Boom, boom, and then we pass it in the st renderer, right? St renderer, comma, and then we also want to pass it in the st scene service, this.st scene service. And then this dot 3 service, and then this dot st animation service, comma. And so we definitely don't need this anymore. And I think that does everything. I don't think it'll hurt anything to do both. It'll just be twice as fast, I think. I don't know. We'll try. Give it a shot. See what happens. Yeah, that thing is flying. So I think we can we can comment this out now. And then everything seems to be fine. Guess we should just, for good measure, go check out all the different views. All right. So now that's gone. So would be nice now would be, okay, I don't even think we need this line anymore. Because I think what was happening before was I had deleted ones, but they weren't actually deleted. So the whole system would just freaking break. And that's a very good example of like what you would call debt, tech debt, right? We have this tech debt that delete. Well, probably with time, it would just get harder and harder and harder to understand what that code was trying to do. But now, so this is good. This is a better time than in the future to actually deal with this thing here. And again, if you're working on a team, you probably don't want to make a decision like that without really being sure that everybody understands, that if anybody else is working that same set of code, you just deleted something and they may actually be dependent on that. You're like, oh, I don't need that anymore, but they might need the delete. Like maybe there'll be a future where you have an undelete and you want to be able to undelete things and stuff like that. So, so you might be deleting something else that something that somebody else is leveraging. All right, so now all our function does is these two lines of code. So let's try to, so everything that is needed is an st renderer. The one thing this doesn't have is, it almost feels like, okay, so this gets called, I wonder if I pass it the renderer service. Okay, so let's go back to this one. Go to implementation. Oh, this doesn't return anything. So I started returning stuff exclusively to make unit tests easier to write. It's just easier to, if you say, hey, I expect this back. Let rendered equals true. Then we're going to return rendered. So we know it's going to be rendered for sure. And now I think we can, wrong one. I feel like we could just move this line of code in there. Actually, it'll be really interesting to see what happens if I call that twice. My guess is if I call this twice, wrong one. If I call it twice, what'll happen is it'll be twice as fast. Okay, we don't want like this. And then we want this to be called a renderer service. So since it doesn't have ST in front of it, we know it's a 3 renderer service. Actually, I'm going to say 3. Which is of type renderer service. And then this should be 3. Let's see. I don't think that should hurt anything calling that 3 renderer service. Oh, yeah, that's right. I can't. Need to pass it in. Just, what do I call it over here? Renderer service. And I'm going to put a comma there. And let's see. I think it'll just go twice as fast again. And we're just throwing arguments on like unlimited ammo. We're just doing unlimited ammo. So it's not going twice as fast. To me, it doesn't look like it's going twice as fast. So calling the renderer twice doesn't seem to do anything. But I think we can now get rid of this. Just add that. Yep, it looks like everything is good. Kind of want to run all the end-to-end tests just to make sure nothing's broken, but I just can't see how. Yeah, everything seems to be good to me. Yeah, we're looking at the right one. What was this number? 19. All right. All right, so that's good. So let's go ahead and delete this guy right here. So all this does is return this one function. So I wonder if I can just call the renderer the exact same way, wherever is calling this. And I feel like that would, whatever is calling this, I think was the only thing that was actually using this as an injectable. Okay. This ST, okay, so that's this. So inside of animation service, that's this guy. Create function for render. Was it happening in here? Okay, I'm confused. Render, render. All right. ST render service. Where am I? I am inside of, okay, getting the base renderer in the ST renderer service. All right, so this guy has, so if I change, okay, so this gets called like this, but I don't want to call this anymore. I want to call my, I can't even remember what the hell that thing's called. This 3 animation service, but this is just a class. So let's go to animation service and we're going to pull this in 3 animation class. It's not a service, or I don't know if it is a service. It's not a singleton. So I come over here and instead of inject, and I think I can just do this. Okay, so let's just make sure that doesn't break anything. We'll just add the R's to it. Okay, so that works. So now what we want to do is instead of creating our render function like that, we want to, okay. Oh, the one thing is that render, so let R equals, wait, am I in the wrong? Messed up. Okay, this is where we create our function. Okay, so I'm just going to say let R, which is this void, and it's equal to this dot three animation class dot update property for animation, update property for renderer. Okay, what does that thing do? Now I'm not sure. Okay, all this did was return. Okay, so we actually need an actual function that returns the class. Okay. So let's go ahead and comment this out. And we want to update this to actually return a class, a function that does this. So let's go to our animation service. See, this returns, basically we want this equivalent. Okay, let's just do that. Now I think we're going to have to do the unlimited ammo thing again, which I just don't know. I don't know how many times we can go to that well before things just go sideways on us. But I can't freaking imagine what the problem would be. Okay, so let's go ahead and doom, boom, and comma. Okay, so this definitely is this. We know that. Actually, wrong way. It's this. We know that this exists in this class itself. But we also know that we need an ST service, ST scene service, ST, which is an ST scene service. And so we don't need this anymore. And we know we need a 3 mesh service. I feel like I'm definitely on a bad path because while this does work and all that, I found that anytime you're I think it's called mesh service. Anytime that you're just like got this many arguments, you're probably doing something goofy. But honestly, unless learning it has some dose of pain involved, I probably won't remember it. So ST animation service. I just won't remember it. So I don't know. I don't know. I have definitely worked in places though where professional places with brilliant people with degrees from computer science degrees from very, 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 very fancy um, uh, like Ivy League colleges, um, and had seen just like things just like this, where there's like maybe even like 100 um, dependency injected things. I think it's renderer service. See, I want to name this 3. Okay, I think I want to. Oh, okay, so that I did do that before. All right, so I'm passing these in, so, and I want this to not have a bunch of extra R's. It's gonna be really interesting to see what happens. Okay, so that is good, and now we're gonna come back to our triple R, quadruple R, whatever it was. Wrong one. This animation service. Okay. So now I think I can just say return this dot three animation class dot create animation function for this. Like that. Now it's upset because I'm just going to put that on the next line because it wants the ST renderer first, right? Then it also wants this dot st scene service. I'm looking at this little blue right here. This is new for me. I haven't really ever used that resource before, but it looks like we want now 3.mesh, our mesh service, and I called it 3mesh service. And then next it wants the ST animation service. And then last it wants the renderer service. And this code is not long for this world, so I'm not worried about the name of it. See if this works. It wouldn't surprise me if this doesn't work. Ah, yay, it worked. All right. So now it seems like I can do the three animation class over there where the three functions RRR is, which I can't even remember where is that? Must be, oh, it's in this renderer service. And I did create the class, right? No. Is this the right place? Get renderer by ID. Okay, this was not the right place. Okay, so I'm going to hit back. And I'm going to make this 3 R's instead of 4 R's and just see where it breaks. Okay, so it happens in our ST render service. I could have sworn I was just looking in there. Okay. So that's the 3 R's. So we want to use this 3 class animation class, which the class is not a singleton, so it doesn't know how to. It has to be passed in all of the things that it needs. So dot create animation function for renderer. And then last time I hit enter here. And then when I clicked on this, it told me what I needed. An argument for ST renderer was not provided, which I think I do pass. Do I pass the whole renderer in here? Yeah, ST renderer. Okay, comma. What else do we need? We need our ST scene service. I don't know if we have an ST scene service. Yeah, it looks like we have a ST scene service up there. So this dot ST. Man, I could just do this all day. Scene service. Sometimes like coding like energizes you. Like you have more energy when you're done coding, and then sometimes it draws energy from you. Okay, so this is our mesh service, and it's a 3 mesh service, so probably is called this dot. Doesn't look like I pull this one in. So I don't know if we can, we'll see. So if the renderer service gets pulled into the mesh service, then we'll have a problem. If not, we won't. So I guess what we want to do is we're going to use, I guess we'll use the injector. I don't know. I'm not, oh, there we go. Up here is where we're doing this. So I'm looking for the mesh service. I'm hoping that my mesh service does not currently inject my renderer service, because this is the ST renderer service. So I'm going to say private, and then 3 mesh service. Oops, misspelled private. 3 mesh service, and this is a mesh service, and inject mesh. And what's a bummer about this is like this will not break the transpiler, or the ID won't catch it or anything like that. So all I can really do is I'm going to go over here to this definition, and I'm just going to look at the, okay, so this guy doesn't really inject anything, which is great. That's a good filling. So that's good. So we got our 3 mesh service. So now we're going to pass the 3 mesh service in down here. And we got 1 mod defeated. Oops. All right, what's the next one? Oh, it showed me too, and I just ignored it. We want our ST animation service. ST service. So we do not bring in the ST animation service. This one's scary because it wouldn't surprise me if we have a problem there. So let's go over here, private ST animation service colon ST animation service, and that's equal to inject ST animation service. And then we'll go over here to it and see if we inject. So I see we inject 2 things. We inject our recyclable sequence service and our mesh, ST mesh service. Wonder if that's going to be a problem. Don't know. And that's the problem. Like once you start getting this big, it starts to like this. If there's a problem with cyclic redundancy bug, it's not going to show up until all of this code is working. And then it'll show up as a runtime error. What is the next one? Darn it. The 3 renderer service. Let's see, do we have a renderer service? Renderer service. We do have the renderer service right now. And then I'll put a comma there. Okay, let's just make sure nothing broke. Doesn't look like it. Okay, now let's see if we can make this R and the other one renderer function. Because this gets used. I'm pretty sure this gets used. Yeah, right there. So, but I'd rather this guy get used. Actually, let's just do that. Let's just change this to R. It's not going to stay R, but oh, yep, that looks like that works. So it doesn't look like we need this guy anymore. And I'm going to change this one to render function because I feel like that is a much more useful name than R. And then change this to render function. And boom, boom. Okay, so then I don't think we even need animation service anymore. Yep, we don't even use it anymore. And I think this might have been the only place that we were injecting the animation service. I mean, I think there were a couple places, but I think this ended up being the only place at this point. Well, import. No, okay, so we do inject it here too, inside the app component itself. Okay, so this is doing the layout of the actual DOM elements, not this. So, okay, so until we get the DOM element stuff out of here, we have to keep that as an injectable. All right, so we aren't using that there. So I don't think, let me do this. Well, yeah, I can remember. Okay, let's go back to this view here. Let's go to our animation service that's up here, this top one. Let's just get rid of this whole function now. Now, to me, at the beginning, when we first started trying to break this function up, this seemed impossible. But like, you just take a step, you just start walking in that direction, and then once you've, every marathon starts with a single step, and just start teasing out little pieces of it. So now we don't need this anymore. And animation service. See, like this is about setting the position for a viz component. It uses the viz component service. This is there. So, so yeah, that one needs to go into like, I think more of a UI service, something that's in this UI section probably, because this is only updating like DOM elements. This is not about like specifically about the request animation frame, and that one probably should also be a class. So I think inside of UI service, viewport. So it's like, I don't know. There was another one too that we general position. See, we have this positioning thing. That feels like that belongs in positioning. See, it almost feels like this is where that belongs. Okay, so I think that's what I want to do next is move this render service. I'm definitely not doing it today. I'm just trying to set myself up for success in the morning. Um, render. Do I use this anymore? Well, okay, I'm in the wrong place for one thing. I almost started making a huge mistake. Here, this guy right here. Nope, that's not the right one either. It's this guy up here. This high level animation, just everything. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a little note for myself. Ignore Ash. Okay, move this function to the should be in the platform service. Utilities dash positioning. Probably should be a new function. Positioning, and then DOM layout. No, component. Component. Viz component layout. Just make sure we don't have that name. Nothing's named that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control P, and I'm just going to type in. Okay, yeah, so that does not, we do not have a file that name. So I think that's what I want to do tomorrow, is down in here, utilities, positioning, viz component layout service, and move set position into that. And then probably, I think everything else goes in there as well. And once all those are out, we do not need this service anymore. This service can just be deleted. And I think I want this to be a class. And actually, I think I might, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I should name them .class.ts instead of .service.ts. Which, if I'm going to do that, I probably should do that for. Where are you? See, where this one is not injectable or for root. Okay, so I feel like, okay, you know what? I'm going all in. I don't know. I'm just going to do this. Class. I don't know. That's probably a mistake, but you know, I just don't know what else to do. Class. And again, this is the kind of thing that, like, honestly, like in 2005, I was making like a lot more money than I make now. And I never would have been willing to do this because I would have been way against doing this because trying to fix, trying to, in just pure JavaScript is so forgiving. Trying to find these sorts of issues is very hard. Class. Or like trying to find all the places where things can get messed up can be damn near impossible. Okay, so make sure that's not an issue. Okay, and then I want to come in here. This is the one, right? That I changed the class. Okay, so I want to rename this to class here. And this is how like you end up with rename. Like how I have all this extra work to do with animations right now because that was the first thing I did, and then everything has evolved. Um, now I've like all these things are like I've come up with a whole new concept now where I'm going to do um, where I'm going to do name things classes if they're not singletons. Like that's a new thing that literally I invented today in my mind, right? Like I don't know. I'm not saying I invented the whole concept. I'm just saying in my personal world, I this is a new thing for me, and now I'm doing it this way, and I probably have other things that don't abide by this, man. Look at all these imports that I don't use over here anymore. I don't even use 3 in here anymore. See, this thing is definitely getting outsourced to the point where it's just not even going to be necessary anymore. It is 101 lines of code, and it's got 58 lines of boilerplate. So it's like 40 lines of code now, 43 lines of code that need to be deleted or they need to be moved. And then this whole service can just be gone. So that is that. Let's see. Hour and 20 minutes. That was really long. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.